Have you ever given someone your time, your support, or even your heart, only to walk away feeling used, invisible, and emotionally drained? As we grow older, our ability to help others becomes even more valuable, not just because our energy becomes more limited, but because our emotional well-being becomes non-negotiable. And yet, certain people will continue to ask, take, and expect, without offering even the smallest gesture of care in return. If you're over 60, protecting your emotional boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential. It's not about turning away from those who genuinely need love. It's about knowing when enough is enough, because your peace, your time, and your dignity are worth defending. This video is about becoming aware. It's about identifying the types of people who slowly chip away at your emotional reserves, often without you even noticing. It's about learning how to say no confidently and without guilt. Because the reality is, helping the wrong people can rob you of the very serenity you've worked a lifetime to build. We're going to uncover 7 specific types of people who often show up with good intentions, or at least a pleasant smile, but leave you feeling depleted. Some may be unaware of how much they take. Others know exactly what they're doing. Either way, you walk away from those encounters feeling smaller, more anxious, and less whole than before. If you've ever hung up the phone or ended a visit feeling more frustrated, more tired, or simply more unsettled than when it began, then this video is for you. What we're about to explore could be the turning point between a future filled with resentment and exhaustion, or one of peace, clarity, and strength. Let's begin. Person 1. The chronic borrower. There are people who don't truly need your advice, your compassion, or your company. What they really want is your money. But they won't say it directly. They'll dress it up as just a small favor, a quick loan, or a one-time emergency. And because you're kind-hearted, and maybe because you've known them for decades, you feel pressured to say yes again and again. The chronic borrower rarely shows up with demands. Instead, they present their requests wrapped in urgency, guilt, or polite desperation. They might say, "I wouldn't ask if I had any other choice," or, "You're the only one I trust." It sounds sincere. It feels important. But if you pause and look closely, you begin to notice a pattern. There's always a new crisis, always a new reason. And somehow, you're always the one they turn to. They never repay the money. They don't return the time. Sometimes, they don't even offer a simple thank you. What's happening here isn't just financial. It's psychological. As we grow older, especially after retirement, there's a deeply human desire to feel needed, to believe that you still have a purpose in someone else's life. That's a beautiful part of aging. But unfortunately, it can also make you vulnerable. Chronic borrowers sense that desire, and some take full advantage of it. These people aren't looking to solve their problems. They're looking for someone else to carry their burdens, and that someone is often you. Helping isn't the issue. It becomes dangerous when your help is never enough. When no matter how many times you step in, the situation never improves. That's not support anymore. That's enabling. And enabling doesn't just hurt them. It chips away at your peace, your resources, and your spirit. Take Bill, for example. At 73, he was living on a modest pension and Social Security. For years, his nephew kept dropping by with new emergencies, broken down cars, short rent, late bills. Each time, it was just until Friday. And every time, Bill reached for his checkbook, telling himself he was doing the right thing. Then, one day, something clicked. Bill realized it had been 7 years, 7 long years of giving, without a single sign of change. No new job, no effort to improve, just new excuses, arriving like clockwork. That was the day Bill stopped. It wasn't easy. He felt guilt. He wondered if he was being too harsh. But do you know what happened next? His nephew figured it out. Because when the handouts ended, real responsibility had a chance to begin. And Bill? He finally started using his money for something that truly mattered: his own health, his own well-being. So don't let anyone make you feel guilty for closing your wallet. Setting boundaries doesn't make you mean, it makes you wise. Person 2, the emotional leecher. This is a different kind of taker. They don't ask for money. They won't show up with financial requests you can count or measure. But they drain you just the same. These people don't want your cash. They want your attention, your energy, and your emotional presence. And they'll keep taking as much as you allow. The emotional leecher is never without a crisis. There's always something wrong. And somehow, you're always the first person they call. One day it's their health. The next, their kids won't listen. Their friends betrayed them. Their boss is out to get them. Their whole life, in their words, is falling apart. And you? You've become their go-to therapist. Except you're not getting paid, and they're not getting better. At first, it feels noble. You're listening. You're supportive. You give thoughtful, kind-hearted advice. But pause and ask yourself, what happens after that? Do they actually follow your advice? Do they show any real curiosity about how you're doing? Or do they just unload their emotions, leave you emotionally spent, and disappear until the next meltdown? Older adults are especially vulnerable to this kind of emotional drain. As our social circles shrink, we tend to hold on tightly to anyone who still picks up the phone or drops by. But sometimes, those connections come with a heavy cost. If you consistently hang up feeling more burdened than before, if you feel drained instead of uplifted, that's not a relationship. That's a one-sided transaction. Psychologists have a term for this: emotional labor. And when it's always you doing the labor, it starts to wear you down in ways you might not even notice right away. Over time, chronic emotional stress can increase your blood pressure, disrupt your sleep, and even weaken your immune system. It's not just exhausting, it's harmful to your health. Take Linda, 68, from Ohio. She had a neighbor around her age who started dropping by frequently. At first, the connection was warm. They'd chat over coffee, laugh, swap stories. But slowly, those visits shifted. The conversation became heavier, the tone darker. Each visit turned into a venting session. Her neighbor never asked about Linda's life, never offered support back. It reached a point where Linda felt a wave of dread every time the doorbell rang. So one day, Linda made a decision. She stopped opening the door every time. She began choosing her peace over someone else's storm. And something amazing happened. Her energy returned. Her thoughts became clearer. Even her daughter commented that she seemed lighter, more like herself again. Because emotional weight, just like physical weight, becomes unbearable if you never set it down. You do not owe your emotional energy to people who never return the favor. Protecting your mental space isn't selfish. It's a form of self-respect. If you're still watching and you found this insight helpful, drop a comment with the number 2 so I know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Hit that button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Your support means the world. Thank you for staying with us and supporting this journey. Your encouragement allows us to keep creating meaningful content to inform, inspire, and uplift. Now, let's keep going. Person 3. The guilt tripper. These individuals are masters at using one subtle but powerful tool: guilt. They won't come right out and ask you for something directly. Instead, they'll drop carefully worded comments like, "I didn't think you'd forget about us," or, "Must be nice to have all that free time now." On the surface, it sounds harmless. But underneath, it's loaded with manipulation. Before you even realize what's happening, you're doing things you never agreed to. Agreeing to favors you didn't want to give. Saying yes when every part of you wanted to say no. All just to avoid feeling like the bad guy. But what makes guilt trippers especially harmful isn't just what they ask for. It's how they leave you feeling after you've given in. There's no thank you, no appreciation. Instead, there's a lingering feeling of obligation, as if you've barely caught up on an invisible debt. You see, guilt trippers operate on emotional pressure. They twist your compassion into a burden, and this becomes even more toxic as you age. Why? Because it preys on some of the most beautiful parts of who you are. Your sense of duty, your longing to stay connected, your desire to be helpful. Those are strengths, but when placed in the wrong hands, they become tools for control. Sometimes guilt trippers are family, sometimes they're old friends, and sometimes they're barely acquaintances who've decided your kindness is up for grabs. Take George, for instance, a 74-year-old retired teacher living in Florida. A fellow member of his church began showing up more and more, always with a small request. A ride to the pharmacy, help assembling a television, pulling weeds in the yard. Nothing major, at first, but every time George hesitated, said he was tired, or had plans, his friend would sigh and say, "I just thought Christians were supposed to help." That one sentence carried a heavy emotional weight, and for a long time, it worked. George kept saying yes, even when he didn't want to, until one day he stopped. He saw it clearly for what it was, manipulation wrapped in morality. That's when George learned something powerful. Boundaries are not barriers, they're a form of self-respect. And guilt trippers despise boundaries, because once you put them in place, they can no longer treat your compassion like a bottomless well. You can still be kind, you can still be giving, but real kindness comes from a joyful heart, not from guilt, not from pressure. Generosity should be a choice, not a demand. When you say yes, it should feel like freedom, not like surrender. If someone constantly makes you feel like you're in their debt, like you owe them something just for existing in their life, that person is not your friend. That's a user in disguise. And at this stage in your life, you've earned the right to something far more valuable than guilt. You've earned peace. You've earned freedom. You deserve relationships that honor your emotional space, not ones that make you feel like you're constantly giving from an empty cup. Person 4. The emotional leech. These people are a bit different. They don't want your money. They don't even need your help in the traditional sense. What they crave is your emotional energy, and they'll keep draining it, drop by drop, until you're left feeling completely depleted. You probably know someone like this. Every phone call becomes a saga of personal drama. Every visit turns into a one-sided therapy session. You sit and listen, you nod, you offer advice. But no matter how long you stay, how much support you give, or how many times you repeat yourself, nothing ever really changes. That's because they're not searching for solutions. They're simply looking for a dumping ground. And if you're not cautious, you become that ground. In your younger years, maybe you had the strength to be that steady shoulder for everyone else. But as we get older, our emotional energy becomes a sacred resource. You need space for your own peace, your own healing, your own simple joys. And if someone is constantly showing up and filling that space with their storms, you slowly start to lose sight of your own sunshine. Sometimes, these emotional leeches come from within the family. A worried daughter who calls every night just to vent without ever asking how you are. Other times, it's a longtime friend who only talks about their problems, never once pausing to hear yours. And the most difficult part? You feel guilty setting limits. Why? Because you're kind-hearted. Because you care, and they know that. But here's the truth you need to hold on to. You are not their therapist. You are not obligated to carry the emotional weight of someone else's unresolved issues, especially when doing so comes at the cost of your own mental health. Take Helen, for example. She's 68 and lives in Colorado. A neighbor started dropping by nearly every evening just to chat. At first, Helen welcomed the company, but over time, these visits became heavy. Every conversation spiraled into complaints: his health, his job, his ex-wife. Helen kept listening, out of politeness, out of habit, out of a desire to be kind. But one evening, as the clock struck 6, she felt a sense of dread wash over her, as if she were bracing for a dental procedure. That was the turning point. That's when she realized this wasn't companionship. This was emotional exhaustion. So Helen did something brave. She learned to say, gently but firmly, "I'm not in the space to talk right now." And when Helen drew that boundary, the world didn't fall apart. The sky didn't crash down. What happened instead was simple and powerful. Her peace came back. Her evenings felt lighter. Her home felt like a refuge again. That's the truth most people overlook. Boundaries aren't cruel. They're not harsh or heartless. Boundaries are clarity. And emotional leeches hate clarity because it means their days of draining you dry are numbered. So, if there's someone in your life who always leaves you feeling more anxious, more exhausted, or more emotionally heavy after every interaction, take a moment to pause. That's not connection. That's not friendship. That's emotional labor. And your energy, especially at this stage of life, is far too valuable to pour into someone who never gives anything back. If you're still here watching, and these insights are speaking to your experience, drop a comment with the number 4. I'd love to know you're still with me. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support allows us to keep bringing you thoughtful, practical content that informs and inspires. Now, let's keep going. Person 5, the manipulator in disguise. This type of person can be hard to spot at first. They often come across as incredibly warm, even generous. They flatter you. They compliment you. They might even do small favors or make you feel seen and appreciated. But there's always a string attached, sometimes subtle, sometimes hidden. But it's there, waiting to be pulled. These manipulators are smooth. They might call you wise, tell you that you're the only one they trust, or say they can always count on you. And in the moment, it feels good. You feel respected, maybe even honored. But that flattery, it's not genuine. It's bait. Because right after the praise, here comes the ask. A quick ride. A small favor. Something that doesn't seem like a big deal, until it keeps happening. Slowly, it becomes a pattern. And here's the twist. When you finally hesitate or try to set a limit, they don't explode. Instead, they twist the knife gently. They say things like, "Wow, I didn't think I'd have to explain it to you," or, "I guess I just care more than you do." And suddenly, you find yourself doing what they want, not because you want to, but because you feel like you're failing some invisible test. The more you give, the more they expect. It never seems to end. And this kind of behavior is especially common toward older adults, especially those who are kind, generous, or feeling isolated. Manipulators know how to sense emotional vulnerability and use it to their advantage. You might not recognize it at first. You might think you're simply being helpful, being a good friend or relative. But take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Do they give as much as they take? Or do they always come out ahead, leaving you with less and them with more? Let me tell you about Ed, an 82-year-old retired accountant. He had a younger cousin who started visiting once a week. At first, it was lovely, just a chat over coffee, sharing memories. But slowly, things shifted. It started with small things, errands here and there. Then came the requests for cash. Then the cousin needed to borrow Ed's car, just for a few days. But those few days kept stretching longer. By the time Ed realized what was really happening, the gratitude was gone, the compliments had vanished, and in their place was entitlement. When Ed tried to say no, the cousin didn't even try to hide it anymore. "I thought we were family," he'd say, as if that line alone justified the manipulation. But real family doesn't use guilt as a weapon. Real family doesn't turn your generosity into an obligation or treat you like a free ride. If someone only praises you when they want something, that isn't love. That's strategy. And you're not obligated to play along. You don't owe your peace of mind to someone else's hidden agenda. As we get older, our ability to trust becomes even more precious because we've learned through experience how hard that trust is to rebuild once it's broken. So when someone's behavior makes you feel uncomfortable, unsettled, or suspicious, don't dismiss it just because they're smiling when they ask. A smile can be a disguise. And no matter how polite or familiar they seem, you have every right to say no. You don't need to justify it. You don't need to explain yourself. You've earned the right to protect your peace and expect your kindness to be met with respect, not taken for granted. Person 6. The always in crisis drainer. You know the type. They never seem to have a calm day. Every phone call, every text, every visit is laced with urgency. Some new emergency, some unexpected drama. And somehow, you're always the one they turn to. At first, it feels meaningful. You're needed. You feel like you're making a difference. But gradually, their never-ending problems begin to weigh on you. Their chaos doesn't stay contained. It spills over into your life and starts shaping your days. Their anxiety becomes your anxiety. Their stress becomes your stress. And before long, their crisis has become your emotional load to carry. The hardest part is that this kind of person often doesn't even realize they're doing it. Some thrive on drama without even meaning to. Their rent is always behind. Their job is in jeopardy. Their partner just left them again. Their health scare is worse than ever. Every week brings a new disaster, and each time they expect you to step in like the emergency response team. Now, don't get me wrong. Helping someone through hard times is one of the deepest forms of love. We've all needed that shoulder before, but there's a difference between someone weathering a tough season and someone who turns every season into a storm and expects you to stand in the rain with them every single time. This becomes especially harmful in our later years. Why? Because our emotional, mental, and physical energy has limits, and those limits matter. Your time, your rest, your well-being, these aren't extras. They're essential. And if someone's constant emotional emergencies are making you feel anxious, drained, or even depressed, then they're not just hurting themselves, they're slowly wearing you down, too. Take Karen, for example. She's 74 and had stayed in touch with a childhood friend named Lisa. At first, the calls were welcome, but soon they came every single day, sometimes multiple times. Karen listened patiently. She knew Lisa was lonely. She understood. In the beginning, it felt like the right thing to do, being there for an old friend. But as the weeks turned into months, Lisa's stories became heavier, filled with constant fear, betrayal, and family drama. What started as casual chats soon turned into hours-long sessions of emotional venting. Karen's own well-being began to slip without her even realizing it. She started skipping her morning walks with neighbors. Her sleep suffered, her spirit dimmed, and she didn't notice how much she had changed until her daughter gently said, "Mom, you're not yourself anymore." That's the reality many of us face. These people don't always mean to cause harm. Often, they're just struggling and reaching out the only way they know how. But good intentions don't mean you have to sacrifice your own health, energy, and joy. Just because someone is in a storm doesn't mean you're required to live in it with them. You are not a lifeboat for someone else's permanent waves. It's okay, even necessary, to say, "I care about you, but I need to take care of myself too." And if that honest boundary causes distance, maybe the relationship was never truly mutual in the first place. At this stage of life, your peace is worth more than ever. Your emotional space is sacred. Don't trade it for guilt. Protect it, guard it, and honor it. If you're still watching and finding value in what we're sharing, go ahead and drop the number 6 in the comments. It helps me know you're still here and engaged. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's a good time. Hit that button and turn on notifications so you won't miss future videos. Your support means everything and allows us to keep creating content that truly matters. Let's keep going. Person 7. The one who keeps you stuck in the past. This person is a little trickier to spot because at first they sound warm, familiar. They constantly bring up the good old days. They remind you of who you used to be, what you used to do, and sometimes, subtly, what you can no longer do. It may seem like harmless nostalgia, but over time, those words begin to weigh on you. They stop sounding like sweet memories and start feeling like invisible chains. They'll say things like, "You used to be so sharp back then," or, "Remember when you handled everything on your own?" And when you try to explore something new or step outside your comfort zone, they gently pull you back. "At your age?" they'll say, or, "What's the point now?" Whether they mean to or not, this kind of talk slowly chips away at your confidence. It sends a message. The best parts of you are behind you. And that message can be paralyzing. It keeps you from stepping into new friendships, trying different activities, or even believing that joy, growth, and change are still possible. It keeps you frozen in a version of yourself that no longer serves the person you are becoming. That version of yourself, the one they keep bringing up, no longer serves who you are today. And yet, they make you feel guilty for wanting more, for reaching forward instead of always looking back. This becomes especially damaging in older age, when the stories we tell ourselves hold so much power. The beliefs we carry about who we are and what we're capable of shape our entire experience. If someone keeps repeating a narrative that your best days are behind you, it starts to settle in. You begin to believe it, and that quiet, constant message can slowly drain your desire to grow, to connect, and to explore life's possibilities. It can steal your joy without making a sound. Take Harold, for example. He was 79 and had spent years playing chess at the park, a pastime that brought him both mental sharpness and companionship. After a stroke, his hands began to tremble. His old friend George told him, "You should give it up. You're not like you used to be." Harold took the words to heart. He stayed home. He watched the world from his window. The game he once loved became a reminder of what he'd lost. But then something shifted. A stranger at a local event invited him to join a community game night. "No pressure," they said. "Just come have fun." That one invitation cracked the shell. Harold showed up. He played. He laughed more in one evening than he had in months. Not because he went back to who he was, but because someone finally saw who he could still become. That's the truth we all need to hold on to. Aging doesn't mean disappearing. It doesn't mean you're shrinking or becoming irrelevant. It means you're evolving, you're learning, you're still living. And anyone who tries to lock you inside an outdated version of yourself, no matter how softly they speak, isn't helping you move forward. They're holding you in place. You deserve relationships that see your current self, that uplift your present, and support your future. Not ones that keep you stuck staring into the rearview mirror, forgetting there's still road ahead. And there you have it, 7 types of people you should never feel guilty about stepping away from, especially in your later years. This isn't about bitterness, it's about boundaries. It's about honoring the peace, purpose, and growth you've earned. Choosing to protect yourself doesn't make you selfish, it makes you wise. Final thoughts? Getting older doesn't mean you're losing strength. On the contrary, it means you're gaining clarity. And part of that clarity is learning when to walk away from what no longer serves your well-being. Part of growing wiser is knowing when to let go. Not because you're angry, but because you finally understand how important it is to honor your own life. You've spent decades showing up for others, giving your time, your compassion, your patience. You've been the helper, the listener, the one who fixed things behind the scenes. But now, it's your turn. It's your time to protect your peace, to guard your energy, and to surround yourself with people who truly value you, not just the version of you they remember, but the person you are today. You don't need to keep carrying people who won't carry you back. You don't owe space in your life to those who drain your spirit, guilt you into saying yes, or belittle your worth. Some may accuse you of being selfish for creating distance, but the truth is, self-care isn't selfish, it's powerful. It's a quiet kind of strength that says, "I matter too." And that strength allows you to fully enjoy the years you've worked so hard to reach. You've earned this season of life, the one where your peace, your health, and your happiness take priority. You deserve relationships that nourish your soul and bring you joy, not ones that leave you feeling depleted and small. So, if anyone ever questions your choices or tries to shame you for protecting your boundaries, remember this: your life belongs to you. You don't owe it to anyone who doesn't respect it. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. We'd truly love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share one meaningful takeaway from this video and how you plan to apply it in your own life. Your voice matters, and your insights inspire not only us, but the entire community. Reading your comments brings us encouragement and keeps us motivated to continue creating content that supports, uplifts, and informs. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who may need to hear this message. Wishing you abundant health, happiness, and peace. Take good care of yourself, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We'll see you in the next video.